anyways, my first question is, who was the first person to say, hey, what if we lived in Panama? Like, what if we did this?
Well, 8 years ago, we went to Panama.
Yeah.
I think it was on the car ride back to the airport.
On the first trip.
On the very first trip.
Okay.
John
Why did you
said,
go?
So this was the one that we went to with the youth group.
2017.
2017. And we were riding back, and for some reason it was just Seth and I with John.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going somewhere. And John said, Marcella, you look really happy here. And I said, well, I'm digging this. I like this a lot.
Mm.
And I said, I love the hot weather. We're in another culture. This is where I thrive, is in the uncomfortable. And I like leading people through this because everything's going to be okay. So, and he was like, well, you look really comfortable. And I said, oh, I can be comfortable anywhere. And I said, it's this guy. It's this guy, because he was like, what do you mean? And I said, I think someday, we'll do an adventure like this. But the person you need to pray about is Seth. I was like, me, I'll go wherever. And even Minnesota, I've been here for 8 years and I've tried to have a good attitude, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I can go anywhere for a certain amount of time and give it a good, fair shot. But I don't know if Seth would thrive on that like I do.
Sure.
I do feel like she always has a bag secretly packed somewhere that if it was like, hey, here we're going. Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
but it's a good thing. But
And
yeah,
so-
that's probably, to answer your question, I think that is the,
And John
First
said,
time
I'm
it
going to
got
start
said.
praying. And he
Okay.
goes, because
or are you asking this move? Or are you talking the first time ever that we considered it?
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying first time ever.
I think that was the first time, because it has been, as we've looked back on this journey, it has been the last 8 years of God's been preparing us for this. And our journey with Rock Point has coincided with God preparing our hearts to step into this adventure.
So when was the first time where you were like, this is actually moving forward now? From that moment 8 years ago to the announcement that just happened.
Okay. I am one who journals, which is fun because I do like going back and looking as we were processing this. It was
he's such
November.
a little nerd.
I am a
love
nerd.
it.
He's got like
I
a
am
little
nerd.
book. He's got little
that.
books. He's always writing at night. And I'm just like, he's writing about me. He's writing about us.
But November 18th.
Yeah.
November 18th was a moment where we were down in Panama as a family. I was filling pulpit supply for the church down there. And it's interesting enough, we say it's the least we did with Word of Life because we were down there, but we were down there helping John and the church, the local church, because they didn't have a pastor at the time. And yeah, it was unexpected because we went down there with no intention of us exploring this opportunity. But it was while we were down there where we sensed God saying, actually, it's not later, it's now.
Wow.
And that was the surprise where then we had to be like, oh my goodness, is this really happening right now? And so that was then the journey that started while we were down there. That's then led to the announcement that just happened.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you guys tell the kids?
How about let's talk how Seth told me?
Yeah, let's please.
Oh, we're still overcoming it, but yeah, I'll let Marcella say that one.
So I had to come home and talk to one of his sisters because I was like, listen, I know I'm married to your brother, but I need more information about this guy. So even though we've been married how long?
14
years, there's still some things I don't understand about Seth.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But as his partner, I need to learn better that this is how he is. This is how he operates. It's not necessarily the wrong way or a right way.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to better myself, because that's the only thing I can control is how I, react or respond. And so, and I would say we're pretty healthy that we do both try really hard to be each other's cheerleader and also encourager and supporter. But I was shocked when he told me, like speechless.
because of how it happened.
Yeah.
Can we say how it happened then?
And I didn't sleep for 3 more nights.
Yeah.
Like, I was like,
I think I'd already, because of us knowing each other, I'd already assumed like, oh, of course, Marcel's in on this. I could have, looking back, I could have done better saying, hey, here's the conversation that's happening. But I was even surprised as it happened too. Again, we didn't go
Yeah.
down there with the intention of here's the opportunity that we're being asked to consider. Are we praying about it and talking about it? So we really were unpacking this as we went. And so it was a day where John and I we traveled to the city, Panama City, and we did some work, just the two of us.
This is in November.
In November, November,
Okay.
December. And it was, and we had said a little bit of like, wow, we could definitely see ourselves down here. All the more Marcella's dad was with us because he was around Thanksgiving and he was down there. So we were processing the reality of someday. But again, it wasn't the, hey, right now. But as I was processing with John, and again, John, who, like even 8 years ago said to Marcella, like, hey, I could see you guys down here. And she's like, hey, you got to convince this guy.
Yeah.
And that's my buddy John. And you guys will get to meet him here someday on this show, on this,
Yeah.
on this video.
Yeah.
But he and I were talking because we had a whole day together. And he was first trying to get me just to become a pastor down there because he thought that was the only way to get me down there. I said, hey, that's great. I said, but what if I was involved with the church and I was involved with Word of Life, with the team? Because I had been praying about this kind of role. I saw the need. Not only did I see the need, I had done the work of discovering more of who I was. And when you see a need and you know who you are and how you can fill that need, that's where you start to sense this calling. This like, I have my gifting, I have my lived experience, I have this fire in my chest that says, I want to be a part of that. If I could do that, I would love to do that. And where those three things overlap is significant, right? And that's where, as I was talking to John, I said, well, I could do the pastor thing and I could do this too. And we started talking like a 50-50 role, and we were both getting excited, like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool. But then I said, if I'm going to be really honest though, like as much as I would love that pastoral role, my heart, where I'm really excited, is over here. I said, so what if I did that full time? And John's like, you're saying that you would join the Word of Life team down here? And I was like, yeah. And from that moment, he and I just started running with the possibility. What could this look like? And so we spent the whole day working together, talking, and we had drive time. Well, we had planned that night to do a little double date with our wives because, we'd been away from them all day. And so we got back and took our wives out to dinner. And and that's when Marcella really heard me say, in a serious way, of saying, hey, we're ready to apply for Word of Life Panama. And she's just like, oh.
Are we?
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah. And so we had like just ordered our food, and I remember just like kind of going, okay, like
Great little South African restaurant.
yeah, it was good food. But I was like, oh, whoa. Like, because it was one thing for the two of us to have a short conversation the night before of something that we've talked about that's going to be in the future. But I know once John already gets like a foot in the door of something, he's like, why not now?
Yes.
But at the same time, I had not fully seen that Seth was 100% in, because
we had talked before.
Yeah, because
We've
we
talked
were
for
reserved
years.
about a lot of things. We're reserved as parents. We want to, I don't want to make it easy for my kids, but it's pretty easy to raise kids here. Like it's like they go to school and we go to this church and they start youth group and, but in Panama, same thing, just different. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
And so I had not allowed in my brain for mom Marcella to say yes
Plan that out.
to being like a missionary now.
Sure.
Or to being in Panama now, even though
Because you were a missionary kid. You lived that life.
Yeah,
but then you had then
for a
kinda
short time,
built up like, no, but that's not now. That's later.
So that is just not something that we had talked about. Like we want our kids, we agree that we want our kids to be exposed to cultural opportunities, but also to see that the ministry is not just in a church that we attend. It's all over the world. And, even just how the missionaries operate, they go into their neighborhoods and do all their work. And I want my kids to see that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until that night, the night before, that I had just started turning the wheels of like, okay, well, John's kids are down here and we know the missionary kids, that are down here and they go to school and they go to church here and, but we had not had that husband and wife like commitment of like, let's go and talk to John together.
Yeah.
Instead, it was like just little bro time all day.
Like I said, if I could do some things differently.
They invited the wives, and even Bianca was just kind of like, wow. And you could tell that she was being polite because I was kind of like, do I freak out?
Yeah.
Do I respond? But this is a good thing.
Yeah.
But is it a good thing?
Yeah.
And so
Which is great, which
like,
did put us on the journey of the decision wasn't then. It was like, hey, we're going to take a step. And so we knew we were going to go on a journey of like, let's really see if this is what God is calling us to do.
And that's the good thing is like, we knew that we needed to apply.
Yeah.
And we also knew as soon as we get home and hit the ground, we need to talk to people who know Seth.
Yeah.
And this is where our relationship works really well is that, and I had I lost my nanny job when we were first married, like 3 months in, and I hated not working and we didn't have kids yet. And I was like, I need to work. It's not about money. I just don't need to be sitting at home. And I remembered like, the worship pastor, his wife, I like bumped into her or something. And she was like, how's it going? I was like, horrible. I don't have a job. Like, I'm freaking out. And she's like, you're married now. Who cares? He brings home the bacon. And I was like, no, I need to work. Like, he's a pastor. Like, I want more. I want to get my nails done when I want.
Yeah.
So, and she's like this personality that's just like so chill and so like, and she like calmed me in her conversation, was like, Marcella, you're a wife now. And it's Seth's job to lead. That doesn't mean you don't have to work or don't need to work, but you're okay. Like, so she was sensing a lot more. And for me, I was sensing I'm not bringing anything to the table. Like, what am
Insecurity.
I? And so, since then I have like sat in that of like really focusing on like, what does it mean to support Seth in what he does? Because I know he's going to support me because he loves me. But there is greater things happening with my husband, who I married, who is a pastor. And, there's, what does Michelle say? She calls you, what does she say?
What?
Not like, there's like, not a calling, but you're divine. Like, what does she call you?
I don't remember.
She says something, this is a good friend of ours, but she's just like, you're spoken for, Seth, And so these wise people who know Seth before I married him, when we were engaged, they were, she was mentoring me as like, you're going to be a pastor's wife and you need to learn how to carry yourself and how to be in conversation, how to exit conversations. And also like you reflect a pastor and a pastor reflects a church. And, so there was really kind conversations, and Liz helped with that because she's a pastor's wife. And so ever since then, I haven't had the burden of having a job, but still wanting to provide and help and be part of this. And so part of that is when Seth says it's time to move to Texas because he wants to work in the oil field and he has a 3 to 5 year plan, I said, okay. Like, I remember that was a 20-minute conversation. I just said, okay, we'll figure it out. And you cast those worries and doubts aside because it's his job to lead that. If God's calling him out, he's going to call us through it. And I can rock the boat and give my opinions and my thoughts, which I do. But in some of these big cases, when it's going to happen, it's like, okay, how can I best get in line here to make this like an easy flow?
Yeah.
And so it was just a lot that it wasn't bad. It was just like now we're doing this like right now, like after our kitchen just got done. After 4 years of living in like a little
construction zone.
Like constant chaos, and we keep envisioning our kids here in high school. And, and so we've like built this facade of safety.
Yes.
And if we leave that safety, it doesn't mean we're not safe anymore. It just means it's going to be a different story.
Yes.
And so it took me a couple nights to get there.
Yeah.
As a mom heart, not as a wife. As a wife, I was like, all right, how do I get on board with this? Because I know I'm excited about it. But my mom heart is scared of like, what about our kids?
Yeah.
Because they got opinions too.
Right.
Well,
right.
that is connected to this whole thing where everything we've described of the opportunity and our fit in it, and Like that's all the calling piece. I think the reason why the timing was the surprise to us, and it had to do with our kids. And this is where we're not doing this move for our kids. It was, but the ultimate release and permission in our hearts was the sense from God of saying, not only is our kids going to be okay in this, like this actually might be the best thing for them.
Yeah.
And that's where I felt the peace that, again, as the Bible talks about, a peace that just doesn't make sense, a peace that passes all understanding, and not the absence of bad, because we know it'll still be hard. We still know it'll be difficult. We still know we still got to go through the season of teenagerness that everyone's going to go through.
Yep.
We get to do it in another country. But this not the absence of bad, but the overabundant presence of good, of not only God's unique wiring of our kids for this, but then for our kids to be able to grow up cross-cultural, to see and taste and experience a bigger picture of the kingdom of God. It's the greatest thing we long for our kids. And so once that came into clarity to me and then us, it was this, okay, we can do this now and not later.
Yeah. So then how did you have the conversation with your kiddos?
They were along for the ride. That's
awesome.
what was pretty cool. Like and you could speak into this too. This was our third trip down there now with our kids. And I've told the story now to different people, but being in student ministry for as long as I have, I've done a lot of trips. And there's always this wall that everyone hits, students and adults. It's about day 3, day 4, where the excitement wears off, the initial newness wears off. It gets hard, it gets difficult. And you hear things like, oh, I missed this or I missed that. And that's normal. And that's actually good. It actually is God telling you, like, I didn't call you to live here. I called you to live back home. But you need to bring this experience back to that home and live differently. That's the whole point of short-term missions, right?
Right.
As we've gone down there, not only we've known this about each other, obviously Marcella being, third culture kid herself, missionary kid, she comes alive in those settings because of our marriage and the two become one. Pieces of me comes alive in those settings now together with Marcella. What I guess I'd never thought about or prepared for was seeing that in our kids. And so first time we went down there, they thrived. They did awesome. Second time we were down there, they thrived even more. This last time we were down there for almost 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, something's got to hit here. And again, it wasn't that they were riding a roller coaster high. It was this, they settled into a natural, just almost rhythm way of life. But that's the kind of intro. How would you say as we process it with them when they were down there?
So a cool component we had was my dad was down there.
Yeah.
And so, and my dad, we have like an open, we've lived with him for 3 years when we were in Texas. And so we know how to talk and how to be in the same space together. And so I didn't feel like having my dad there was weird. I saw it as like a positive for Seth and a positive for me of a positive sounding board.
Yeah.
And of course my dad's like, of course you can do this. Of course the kids can do this, and I was like, but dad. And he's like, you can do this. And it was confirmation of just how he saw Seth. Because he would still say today with laughter, he did not see this coming with Seth. And he is just like,
I'm the wild card in all this, right?
For
this
him,
guy.
he's just like, and for Seth to be the one leading it, rightfully so.
Yeah.
My dad is like thrilled because he is just like, this is one that you all 4 of us are going to hold hands and we're going to run into the next gate.
So being down there with him and with our kids, and him speaking into that, and he had been a missionary for 30 years, so he had that reference, that perspective, right? Yeah. But to see that in us and in our kids, again, we use the word calling, but it is like, hey, I made you for this,
yeah,
and it's actually stepping into the greatest reality of who we are, and that is where. Not only for us as individuals, because we're still, at the end of the day, you peel back the layers of Christianity, we're still kids of the Father, still trying to discover who we are in Christ. And so, and with that is all our own insecurities and all those things as well. But as parents of ourselves, we want to discover who God made our kids to be, and and to see them be the greatest version, greatest reality of who God made them to be, and to see that intertwined with this storyline. It's been exciting.
Yeah.
And it's good.
And Maya's our rock star. You can put her anywhere and she's going to thrive. She really loves to be wherever we are, but also she has this independent soul of like, you know, there was like one time where we were down here doing VBS with the indigenous kids and we had brought them to the camp. And there was we were watching a movie and it was in Spanish with subtitles. So my kids don't know Spanish. And
Yet.
Maya had, Maya had this moment where she was like, I think everyone needs some water. And so she went and got paper cups and just one by one started filling water and started giving it, you know, each to the kid. Do you want some water? Do you want some water? And I said, Maya, do you know how to say that in Spanish? And she's like, Mom, I don't need to speak Spanish. And I was like, oh, you know, she was like, I can serve without a language is what she was telling me. And that was
cool.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago. So that's even smaller Maya. That's 6 years old Maya, who is completely in her element. And our wild card is Benaiah because he is very Northern Fagerland. And he likes things that are predictable. He likes his brands. He likes his ways, you know, and it's a particular thing, but it's also like a family trade. So I'm not dogging it or anything. It's just, you know, how Benaiah is made. And we've, since he was a baby, have had to help stretch him. You know, the boy never ate a hot dog or pizza until 7 years old.
He still doesn't eat peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, because he won't taste it. You know. And so we slowly, in his ways, you know, he's our firstborn, so we're gentle, but we have to help stretch him. And so he's our wild card, but at the same time, I'm not worried. And even with my dad being down there, you know, my dad has a sweet bond with Benaiah because we lived with him for 3 years. And Benaiah didn't talk those 3 years ever. Like when we were down there, he had no voice. And we were still trying to figure out what we were dealing with that. But he was like my dad's shadow. And again, you don't need language. Language is good, but you don't need language to be with someone. And Benaiah has this relationship with my dad. It's like a friendship. And my dad also would say our one concern would be how Benaiah will handle it. But he's 12 years old. We are very, we're a family that talks things through. You know, no matter what emotions we have, if we need a pause, but we don't let our kids sit in silence. We don't let them sit in doubt or, you know, all these things. Like we really believe that as being Christian parents, like we need to be the ones speaking into their lives the most and give them space. And so Benaiah, we've had to do kind of like waves, you know. So, and I would say first wave, he was like, no. And we were kind of like, oh, wow, this one's going to be a little harder than we thought, you know. And my dad was kind of like, oof, yep. You know, but at the same time, it's like, why no? You know?
Actually, the very first time we landed down there, he goes, I could live here.
But
then we found out that he would say that everywhere we'd go. So he loves to travel.
I love
He loves being everywhere. But he lands in Panama. We hadn't got out of the airport yet. He's like, I could live here. And I'm like, oh, okay. But now he says that everywhere.
He says that everywhere now. So, but he will take time. And he's still already on a really good chapter of like, he knows it's coming and it's happening, you know, because we did at one point I had to have a conversation like this was 4 months later. And I said, Benaiah, we are doing this and we have made that decision and you're coming with us, you know, and he's like, are you sure? Like I could live with like Auntie Hopi, you know, down the road. And I said, no. And so we've had bigger conversations with a 12-year-old than we have with an 8-year-old who is not afraid, you know, of the difference. But that's also their worldviews. Her worldview is very much still just us and wherever we are, she's just happy to be. And Benaiah's already thinking of like, his friendships are going to look different. Like they're going to forget about him, you know? And I said, maybe, or we can just work really hard to keep those friendships close, long distance. And I think that's something good to learn because you have no idea where you're going to be in the world, Benaiah, when you grow up.
100%.
And if someone's that important to you, then you need to have the tools to learn how to have long distance friendships that mean something. And so
we are thankful that as far as the timing and, you know, even though it's going to take us close to 2 years to get down there, it's going to happen before they hit the high school age. So even Benaiah, after this year up here with Rock Point raising up the team and then going to Costa Rica for language school that year together as a family, almost like a soft launch into Latin culture, but I think it's going to really solidify it. We're going to lean each other as a family during that time. But then as we enter then our season in Panama, Benaiah will be going into 8th grade, Maya will be going into 6th grade. And they say that if you're going to make a move like this, do it either before they get into that high school stretch or after.
Right.
And so we see that we will be able to have a good foundation as a family, but also for the kids for that chapter that are going to be with us, that we'll be excited to see them in that season and the launch from that.
Yeah. So he's on the same chapter with us.
Sure.
But, and he's got opinions, which I like. I like to hear what a little guy's got to say.
Yeah.
He also says he could eat yuca every day. So there you go.
Which is just another
yuca.
form of a potato.
Any fried potato. It's good.
Thank God for you.
So we'll have to stay tuned for what how they really fly in this.
Yes.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But they have to.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like we don't, as parents, it's not our job to remove all suffering from our kids' lives.
Yep.
And you guys are leading them gently in that way.
And that's something, I've talked with a couple of my siblings of like, we were all different ages when we moved. And so I asked them their opinions from their ages. How was it moving, And because it's like, I want to take all the advice from anyone that's done this or has been through it, current missionaries who have adolescents in their house, like, how's it going? But it was fun to kind of hear the perspectives, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well we do this. Like, the number one thing that we're teaching Benaiah is that we obey what the Lord calls us to.
Yeah.
And the best part is when you hear it so clearly that it's peace that you receive instead of chaos.
Yeah.
And so it's also teaching them how to speak in their own journeys with God themselves, and so I told him of when I moved. I remember when moving to Costa Rica, and I told him I had a really bad attitude, and that's going to penalize you with time, with friendships. And, because my dad at one point just said, we're going, it's happening. And we all cried. We all threw our tantrums, and we all got on the plane, and we all landed in Costa Rica. And we all survived. So, that's, we had to do some hard conversations too of like, we care, but we care more about what God has called Dad to do. And we're a package deal.
And this is the greatest step of faith I've ever taken, that we've ever taken, this journey. And right where our kids are at, I've done student ministry a long time. I was my son's age when I made my faith my own. When I knew it wasn't just what my parents had, but what I wanted, and that I could trust Jesus. And our kids are right at that age. And so what's fun is like the day that we became official, we had a cool little prayer time as a family, and they prayed 9-year-old and 12-year-old prayers.
Yeah.
And we prayed our prayers as a family. We're doing this. And, but even yesterday, as we put together a summer Christmas card update mailing, and they helped me assemble like 200 of these letters.
Yeah.
They're now seeing that this isn't just what we as a family are doing, but our family, our friends, the people who know us, our church, we're being sent, and they're starting to taste that. They're starting to see that, experience that. And again, that's just something I'm so thankful for.
Yeah.
And I'm jealous for our kids, that a bigger picture of the kingdom, a bigger picture of the church, a bigger picture of who Jesus is, and that they're a part of that.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
I
love that your dad was the first interaction you guys had. Like, how sweet is Jesus that was.
Yeah. And he knows Seth really well. Like, he respects Seth a lot. And so for him he's very excited for Seth to do this. And I think he also wants to live in our house in Panama, which I already told him there would be a room ready for him, because he's also
Steve,
just very
watching.
world-rounded and is just very, it's like, do you ever outgrow your dad? I don't know. But for me, I'm still learning things from him, and I still take his advice. And I love that we had a season in Texas where we got to live in the same house together, which I know for some people might be a nightmare that they lived with their parents or something. And for us, again, I think we tried to soak out the best parts of that and like capitalize on that. And so that was a season that my dad got to know us as you know, I'm not like a little kid anymore, but a mom and a wife. But then also get to know Seth. So yeah, and he was just a good sounding board. You know, he knows how to ask really big questions. And, you know, Seth is like a really nice guy. And my dad's really good at saying, stop being so nice. Ask these hard questions because it's important. So, and I also like that.
Yes.
It's also another man who's moved his family multiple times, who's also, you know, followed a calling that God put on his heart. And yeah, so it's just nice having someone else of like equal caliber. What's the word?
Caliber.
Caliber.
So what is going to be your role? Like, what are you guys going to be? What's the official role?
Well, it's a role that doesn't exist right now.
Sure.
But it is kind of being designed with me in mind. But it is, the Word of Life team has continued to grow. So the Word of Life team has been in Panama for 30 years now. It was started by a guy named Mirko and his wife Tracy. Literally out of nothing, they started this and raised up not only youth, but they who became missionaries. They raised up this team, and 30 years later, it's in a very exciting place. And John, who originally went down there with Reach Global and then became Word of Life director, is now in charge of with family, like it's close to 40 missionaries, 30 to 40 missionaries. This team is growing, and even that team they're from 9 countries, right? Something like that.
I believe so.
But John now is one of the only Americans on the team. There's a couple older Americans that have already retired, come off, but John is the sole. So all church partnerships, all stateside American church partnerships and teams have to go through John, and it's just too much. And so what John really needs support in is someone to kind of take over that role of someone who will kind of stand in the gap as like connector, but director of all short-term teams, churches, student teams, who come down and then facilitate that connection with the Word of Life team. And this is where, again, it's in my wheelhouse. Like I'm made for this. Like this is what I love to do. I love to help prepare a team to come down with the goals of what that church is, disciple making, helping that group learn how to follow Jesus together where they are, but then to come down and partner with this amazing team that has been raised up to serve there, who feel called to reach Panama, to be like they're in their sweet spot element. So it's like connecting 2 sweet spots, and my sweet spot is to stand in the middle of that. And so that role of, and I can't tell this without even smiling. I mean, this is the excitement I have for that. I'm very, very much looking forward to being in that kind of role. And so that'll be one aspect of it. The other aspect of the role that I'll be in is, again, a dream that we've had now for a while with John, is to see a discipleship training school in Panama. Word of Life does what's called Bible Institutes, and I think that's in like 26 countries. Word of Life is in like 70 countries around the world, which is very exciting. But they have this Bible Institute training as 1 to 3 year program where you get biblically trained, equipped, sent, and this is mostly for young people. And they've always wanted to have it in Panama, and they just now are beginning the school. They just started almost like a soft launch towards that. But I think they have like 25 students first off right now, young people in Latin cultures who want to be trained, equipped, and sent for the gospel, for the kingdom of Jesus, and just are hungry for that. And so as I've done student ministry for 21, after next year be 22 years of this pipeline of middle school, then high school, then launching those young adults, like to be able to invest in that moment with the kids, with the young people young adults who are leaning in, who are wanting it. I'd be a part of that. But also in conjunction with that is, and this is where it's exciting, it's a CCI program, cross-cultural internship, where it's college-age American students from the States who go down to Panama for 1 to 2 to 3 years to be a part of that program. And I'd be in charge of that group as well. So here I would get to work with like college students from America who also are hungry to know Jesus and follow Jesus and to flesh out, is God calling me into this? And so we see some exciting days ahead of being involved with both helping these teams come down and partner with Word of Life and take that back, but then also this discipleship training school. So this is where we've been in dreamland for a while. And we took a step into reality when we said, well, what if we applied for Word of Life? Fast forward, we're here now. We're still heading towards reality once we get down there, but that's the runway we see in front of us.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Man. So what are some of the top ways that you need people to partner with you guys right now? Like, what are things that you need people to see? What are things that you need people to do for your family and for you individually right now?
Yeah. Why don't you start as a family and then I'll go?
Okay. So like the Costa Rica stuff?
Or yeah.
Oh, I mean, so this year, we're going to be focusing on like selling everything, like a lot of everything, a lot of everything.
A lot of everything.
Yeah, not everything.
Not
but a lot
everything.
of the
Yeah, yeah,
everything.
A lot of everything. Everything for a price. Everything. No.
So, so I would say this gap year of like we're still here and we're not there yet, and we're not at language school yet. You know, it might be a little crazy here while we try to figure out when to get rid of things, how to get rid of things, you know, without freaking out the kids, even though they know it's happening. And just kind of going down to bare basics. And then also keeping them. So Benaiah, we're keeping in public school, and he's very excited about his middle school year, which was funny because 2 years ago we were like, we need to homeschool him in middle school because it's going to be rough, you know, no matter what school you go to. And so we thought for sure by middle school that we would probably need to do a gap year or two and homeschool him and then launch him into high school. And so we were kind of prepared for that. And then even praying about applying for Word of Life, we were like, well, this would be perfect time to do homeschool for both kids. So anyways, long story short, we decided we're going to homeschool Maya, but send Benaiah. And we're praying that's the right move. We hope it's not too awesome, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe there's like one bathroom fight or something that scares him. Just kidding.
Please don't pray for that.
No. So, but it's like we're gonna give him like one big hurrah of like the American school system,
And he'll be part of youth group.
and he wants to be part of like band. He wants to play an instrument. He wants to do like after school like robotics or something, you know. And like it's kind of hard to set him up for this because we know there's none of that in Panama. Like there's not even sports where we are. There's just I mean, unless you like go to a soccer field, there's a bunch of kids, but he doesn't play soccer.
Right.
And he doesn't play baseball. Like, so there are no team sports of any kind. It will be when he goes to school, it'll be for educational purposes. There's no band, there's no extra anything. So I'm a little nervous about him going to this nice, shiny school and getting to do all these good things. But at the same time, we are just praying over it and saying, hey, who knows what God will use this for? And maybe, you know, we'll still allow the pieces to fall where they fall. Maya, we're going to tuck in home a little bit more. We're going to homeschool her. I'm going to homeschool her. So that's going to do her math work for her.
Yeah.
I'm better.
So 4th grade shouldn't be too challenging. But something I'm excited about is plugging in with a bunch of the homeschool moms who are rock stars. And I'm not jealous of what they do because I never wanted to do it to begin with. But I give them
because
major
you
kudos.
didn't feel wired for that.
Yeah, I've never enjoyed the thought of me homeschooling. I think homeschool, the concept is amazing. I am not the person to do it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm like, why are we learning this? So I'm not a very positive teacher, role model for the students. Because for me, I'll go, you'll never need this.
Yeah.
You know? So, so this next year is going to be interesting for me because I've let go of my Global Fingerprints ministry role that I've had for almost 5 years, which is totally okay. I can let it go. I've let it go. I'm going to do what I said I never would do, which is sell all my lovely things and homeschool a child. So those are 2 nevers that I'm eating daily with. I shouldn't have said that. So pray for my sanity and my wisdom. But again, I also think, you know, it's a lot is your attitude, how you're going to handle it. So I'm doing this with 2 hands open of like, okay, we're going to do this the best that we can. However that looks. I'm not even going to create a false image of what that looks like. So big year with selling the house, selling our things, organizing what we need, what we don't need, you know, leading our kids through that as well to make it healthy and not a, you know, devastation, you know. Homeschooling Maya, hoping that that's going to be like a launching pad for her, not really knowing what the Costa Rica schools look like for both the kids. We know that's going to be challenging for all 4 of us.
Yeah.
And so we'll just prepare for kind of, if we're already in the unknown and doing well in a environment that we're familiar with, it's one step closer to it being easier when we're in Costa Rica, because then we'll all already be a little bit out of our element, but ready for something new.
Yeah.
So that's my prayer, is with the kids, to help shepherd them into, I'm out of my element. This is how I'm working it, but we're still in our house. We're still in with our friends, our church. We're still doing youth group.
That's why I wanted you to go to first, is like, we do see a big part of this next year as people come alongside of us, is say, we're preparing as a family to go. And the biggest one, like, yes, well, I'll talk about financial support and all that here in just a second, but so much of this is like, help us prepare to do this, because we know we can't do this by ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, this is where, and we don't want to do this by ourselves. Like, we're wired to do this together with friends and family. As anyone who knows me knows that I say, we're all about following Jesus together. Like, just oozes out of me all the time, right? So it's interesting now, as we talk about this next part, is my whole life, I've always like stayed away from any notion of a fundraising type role. I always thought, that's not for me. I'm not wired for that. I'm a farm kid. I'm working hard, all this kind of stuff. And truth be told, I probably just had fear. I just had fear. Like, I just don't know, would I have the faith to do that, to step into that, to really trust that God would do that. And what I love about this, that I know that this is all God, is like, there's no fear in this, because it really doesn't feel like we're asking for support for us individually. We're asking people to join us in supporting what God is doing down there. It really is that God ask. And it was interesting. We already did some training already for the process of how do we raise up a support team. But like in the beginning of this one book, it said he starts off these trainings with the question like, okay, if there was a magic button that you could push, that that would provide you a steady paycheck for the rest of your life, would you push it? And you could go and do the ministry and just focus on the ministry and not have to do any of the fundraising. And he says, like 90 to 95% of people raise their hand and says, I'd push that button. If I could just focus on the ministry, just push that button and not worry about that side. And truth be told, when I was reading that book, I was like, if there was a button, I'd probably push that button. The daydream you have of like, man, if I could just get everything we've been talking about, the ministry side. But then as they unpack the training, they realize that it's not about fundraising, about money. You're raising a support team, because you need the encouragement, you need the support, you need the accountability. In order for you to stay in it for the long haul, it's got to be bigger than just you. And so that's the joy right now of, as we step into this and we're having these conversations with people, of join our sending team, because we want you to follow us, come with us to Panama. I mean, maybe literally someday come visit us, but
Sure.
It's an extension of God's people who are joining us, who know us and want to continue to invest in this next chapter of our life. So the specifics to get to, right? So we're in the process of raising up our sending team, which there's kind of two sides to it. One is there's the big startup cost, which I'll get to in a second, which is what's going to cover the preparation to move, the flights to Costa Rica, flights to Panama, the year of language school, which is a big investment, but it is something that we believe is going to set us up for the long haul of not only language, but as a family. Like I said, it's going to be that immersion into Latin culture, preparing us as a family to step into this next big chapter of life. But then it's also once we do go to Panama, it's like, okay, we need a vehicle. We need a computers. We need all that kind of stuff. And so those are all part of the startup cost, which I'll say that number, it's around $75,000, which can sound scary, but it's like, okay, but that's a lot of stuff that it covers. And that's why they call it the big startup costs. But then you have your ongoing monthly costs. And this is the ongoing support that takes care of all of our needs as a family, not only, the salary for living expenses, but taxes. People ask, like, do you have retirement, health insurance? Yes, all of that's going to be included, which is fantastic. We're really impressed with how Word of Life wants to take care of their people in all of things. And so all of that's covered. But then there's two other parts. One is it's called field expense, which is actually supports the ministry in Panama where we're going to be at. So it's also people investing in what we're doing in Panama, But also with this role, this unique role is it'll cover the ministry expenses within the role that I'm operating in. So it'll help enable me to do what I need to do, which is fantastic for people to support in that way. And then there's also the other pie that everyone knows about is the administrative fee, which is a way of supporting Word of Life all over the world. And this is where I love telling this part of the story. On the day that we became missionaries, one of the people side messaged me and said, "Fun fact: on the day that they had what's called the board of review, where they the group met with us and it wasn't the final checkoff, it was the celebration. It was like you are approved, welcome to the team." They said that we were one of 4 missionaries from all over the world who got approved that day, that morning.
Oh, cool.
And so because of Zoom and technology, there was a missionary in Papua New Guinea, there was us in Panama, Lithuania, and Ethiopia.
Cool.
And so this person said, we traveled around the world this morning and had 4 new missionaries join us, and you guys were one of that. And so when you see the admin fee, you're supporting that. You're supporting what Word of Life is doing in over 80 countries, and that's what's pretty exciting about that too. But that number of our ongoing monthly team is 9,717. See if I got that right. And that's just our best estimate right now as we look at the numbers. What's this going to be? That could increase in the days ahead. But as we look at how many monthly partners and how many annual gifts and all that kind of thing, it needs to help cover that. Now to connect those two, like I said, we could go after the startup cost first because that looks like a bigger, more scarier number. But actually, what we want to do and what we're praying for is we want people to jump in with the ongoing monthly team actually now.
Sure.
And the blessing of this year is we continue to have our role at the church, which provides our needs now. We don't need to raise support to live on right now. And so as we build our monthly team starting right now, all money raised is going into the bucket that's taking care of the startup costs, which is exciting. So we're kind of doing 2 things at once.
Yeah.
We're building a team that will continue to be with us well into the future, month in, month out. But then as we build that even right now, which is why we announced when we did and everything we're doing, is so that now that both things will happen. But to say some specific dates, we're praying to have our startup costs raised by April 1st of 2025. And we would love to have our monthly team completely set by May 1st, 2025, so that as we go into June and July before we leave, that we're ready to launch into the season in Costa Rica and we're ready to go. 100% fundraise.
Boots on the ground in Costa Rica, hopefully by end of the summer.
Yeah, it'll be August. So
School starts in August.
Yep, we'll be at Rock Point through July, and then sometime mid-August we'll be moving to Costa Rica, and then orientation, and then I go back to being a student again.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So what is one thing for each of you guys that you personally would love all of these people who are going to be listening to this video and supporting you to be praying about over you individually and together?
Well, I would say the kids, pray for our kids like you would pray for your own kids, and not knowing what 2 years looks like, Costa Rica, I think, will be an adventure. I think they'll really enjoy it. We're a family that likes to spend time together. And so I think it'll be a really good, year of really growing closer together. And then Panama, we're going to hit the ground running, because Dad's going to have his new job and he's going to feel, even Seth is going to feel, stretched with, even just a couple weeks being in another country. Like you always feel like the outsider. And this is going to be hard with all of us. But, as soon as we get to Panama, that's when we're really going to be stretched. Like each of us are going to feel a bit uncomfortable. We don't know, are we going to buy a house? Are we going to be in a condo? Or jungle, side of the road? Where are we going?
Yeah.
We don't know. And so this year, I think each of us need to be prayed over in a sense of just quieting our spirits to pace out our excitement, to pace out any doubts, pace out even just what needs to be accomplished next. And as parents, think of your own kids going on a new adventure, and you want them to succeed in that, what does that look like? We don't know what that looks like. And we're okay leaving that open because at the end of the day, they're not ours.
Yeah.
And if God's called Seth to this, we're a package deal. So all 4 of us are. And then for me, prayer would be, I don't know. For me, I'm doing a lot of new right now. Like, I'd rather just get straight to the Costa Rica. Let's just wrap it up and go. I mean, that sounds easier, but I'm someone who is just like, just make the pain not slow and steady. Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Even though I know that's 100% not what we should do if we're going to do this as a family and succeed. But I think the slow game is going to be hard when it's like you've got one foot in, but you have this mom mindset of you have to prepare the way for your kids. And so I know we're under a magnifying glass, like not only for people who are wanting to, be a part of this and also see what we're doing, but also our children are going to be watching and responding how we respond. And I want to do that well. So even with homeschool, when I swear I wouldn't do it, I want to be a good teacher.
Yeah.
I want to be a great principal. I want to be a cute cafeteria worker. I want to be the fun gym teacher.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't give up on me yet, women in the community. Like, I'm still here. Like,
Amen.
give me all your secrets of what works, tell me what to erase, make this load less heavy and more fun. But then also, like, the friendships that I have, I want to keep those.
Right.
And I want to grow new ones. And I'm actually a really good person when it comes to long distance. Like, I'm way better than face to face. Like, sometimes, because I feel like we get super busy day to day. But when you are with someone and it's like 5 minutes, it becomes very precious 5 minutes. And so I want to continue to keep my heart open. Yeah. And again, I want to do this well. I want to do this well for my kids. I want to do this well for my husband. I want to do this well for my friends. And so we are inviting people to come with us, and in every way possible. And I want to do that well, even though my skin nature is saying, let's just go. Let's just dump this. Let's just go. We'll figure it out, right? That's not the reality. The reality is we need to not only be sent, but there are going to be days that we need to be carried.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My goodness, for me, so many things, but, as we pray about, a season of transition, the other thing we've talked a lot about the family, right?
Yeah.
Obviously I care well, Rock Point is still our home church, and we want to be sent well. And in that, we want to make sure Rock Point is taken care of well. And so a prayer of the transition of the handoff of the student ministry, we want to see that be a successful thing and support it well. And so we're looking forward to be a part of that and prayers for that. But as we raise up the sending team, these relational connections with friends and family, we're just excited to see how God continues to bring that all together. But prayers for us, as we see the on-ramp, but we know and we know it's going to fly by. We know it's going to fly by. Yeah. But we want to be faithful one day at a time as we keep going, right? Yeah. And so, I guess prayers for the steadfastness of walking that journey that God's put in front of us. Like, we want to be faithful. We want to be faithful to finish this race as we also then grab the baton for the next race and go in that direction. So, yeah, that would be a lot of stuff. And of course, always prayer of, hey, join our sending team and tell others to join our sending team. This is where we truly unashamedly say we can't do this alone.
Yeah.
So,
amen. Well, I hope and pray that you guys go on lots of dates with lots of people that you love so much. Yeah. And that there's just so much slow amidst so much fast in this next year.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things, which, we got a taste of support raising for my role that I had with Global Fingerprints with Reach Global. But, and we're reading new materials that Word of Life is asking us to read to educate ourselves with finances and how to raise that and how to have those conversations. And something that's really great that I've really enjoyed, even when we were doing mine, was reconnecting with people that we haven't got to live life with. And if that's like a student from 15 years ago, or if it's a high school friend, that we haven't seen each other since we were 13, it's an opportunity to reach out and to reestablish like getting to know someone. And with my global fingerprints, that was one of my favorite things, was not only sharing what I was doing and what I was getting to do in a ministry role, but then also just reconnecting as a person to another person. And the fun part is, you know, when I graduated high school, I always said, I'm not going to college. Like, I'm going to do missions. And that was one of my outreaches to like my friends at public school. They were like, you're crazy. That's so like, you're just going to like travel. And like, I don't get it, you know? And I was like, no, I don't know what it looks like, you know? And for my global fingerprints, I had to reach out. And I was like, if I know you, I'm going to talk to you. Like, that's part of what you do, is you knock on every door. And it's not about getting the money. It's about sharing the news. Everything is about sharing the news. And with this, I was able to reconnect with people that I wouldn't have had any other excuse. You know, you can say, hey, but let's just be a creep, you know? You know, especially with Facebook, you can like something. You're like, where are you coming from? You know? And what does it mean when someone likes your post? You know? So one of my favorite things that I'm looking forward to is, now we've been married 14 years? 14 years. I'm not good with numbers, but 14 years. And we've covered a lot of ground. We've got to be with a lot of people in our lives. And we've had to say goodbye to a lot of good communities. So I'm really excited of the people that we get to reconnect with. And what does that look like? Because the best souvenirs from places that you've been is the people, is friendships. It really is.
That's what's, I think, is going to be so wildly cool for you guys, is you're going to have this whole tapestry of people from all over that you really are bringing with you to Panama, ultimately.
And every single one of you can come visit us in Panama. Like, not at the same
We can't
time.
wait.
Like, I wish we could have this conversation.
I'm praying for a house with a guest room, maybe a guest house. I'm just kidding.
That would be awesome. Let's pray for that, people.
Well, in Panama, it's like every other house is completely different. And it's just kind of like whoever was there had an idea.
But we
So
want it
my
with a mind
idea,
that people will come and visit, family, friends.
we're open books, and we're as this is being written, as this is playing out. And so have grace with us, but also like join us. Like, it's going to be wild. We're ready for it.
Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, God
This is
bless. This is good.